Going into the fight, Derrick James felt Gervonta "Tank" Davis has always knocked out his opponent because lack of pressure. The plan was to get close to Tank, keep his power hands in check, and ensure he was constantly jabbing. But Calvin Ford was able to detect one thing about Frank Martin: he loves to lean against the rope. This was the reason Calvin Ford trained Gervonta Davis to ensure pressure, straight punch, and bring the punch perimeter from the low. As usual, Tank was going to throw away some rounds, and that was to figure out how Frank Martin would move towards the rope. Guess what? Frank Martin did not disappoint. He threw away Derrick's advice and began to lean on the rope. This was the beginning of his downfall. If you were going to blame anyone for the loss tonight, it was Frank Martin. He had the blueprint to beat Gervonta "Tank" Davis and fumbled the plan. Just watch to the end of this video.
You could almost feel it coming.
He stunned Martin with that left.
Yeah, the left uppercut. Now his hands are down. Now he's defenseless. Right there. But Martin should have known better than to be on the...
If you think Derrick James is not a world-class trainer, you should ask if he is going to fight for the fighter. Derrick had trained Frank to defend Tank's uppercut, which was the main arsenal he uses to disrupt opponents' rhythm. He's supposed to move round the ring to ensure Tank's strength conditioning is also tired out, but he was upbeat about knockout. All this while Calvin Ford has been exploring weaknesses in Frank Martin's game. Whenever Frank is being pressured, he backs down to the rope, and just like you heard Frank mentioned it during the press conference, Derrick did warn him. However, not many have been able to detect this in Frank Martin's 18th fight because he usually uses his movement to cover up. Calvin Ford, the mastermind behind Gervonta Davis's training, meticulously studied Frank Martin's fighting style in preparation for their match. Throughout his analysis, Ford noticed a key vulnerability in Martin's defensive tactics: his tendency to lean on the ropes. This habit, while often used to evade punches, also left Martin exposed to powerful counterattacks. Ford crafted a strategy to exploit this flaw. He instructed Davis to apply relentless pressure, pushing Martin towards the ropes. Knowing Martin would instinctively lean back, Ford trained Davis to anticipate this movement. The plan was to lure Martin into a false sense of security and then deliver a decisive, powerful combination. As the fight progressed, Davis executed the plan perfectly. Each time Martin leaned on the ropes, Davis closed the distance swiftly, cutting off his escape routes. Ford's keen observations paid off in the later rounds when Davis feigned a series of jabs to draw Martin's defense. As Martin leaned back, Davis unleashed a ferocious right hook followed by a left uppercut, capitalizing on Martin's exposed position. The impact was devastating. Martin, caught off guard by the precision and power of Davis's punches, crumbled to the canvas, unable to recover. Ford's strategic insight into Martin's rope-leaning habit had led to a spectacular knockout victory for Gervonta Davis. This triumph not only showcased Davis's skill and power, but also highlighted the critical role of Ford's tactical acumen in the ring. Now guys, it is all the same with this guys under Derrick James except Ryan Garcia and Anthony Joshua. Before you all slam Derrick of being an average coach, remember during Anthony Joshua's fight against Robert Helenius, he said, "I cannot find my right hand," and Derrick's response was keep trying it. It ultimately led to a knockout which began Anthony Joshua's path to redemption. Amidst the juicing controversy trailing Ryan Garcia, he executed every plans he and Derrick James had. Even when he began to get cocky, Derrick called him back to order and he obeyed. Errol Spence Jr. and Jermall Charlo all got bigger. It was a bad thing for Frank to have them in his room before the fight. They stopped listening to Derrick, met their nemesis, and then blame him for not upgrading his coaching style. It seems Frank Martin is on that path, except he rethinks everything he's doing. As many of you Tank fans might think Tank is invincible, the truth is that he is also a textbook fighter who knows how to execute his game plan properly. Derrick James wanted Frank Martin to jab often. Take a look at the time Frank stuck to the game plan jabbing often. Davis' face became swollen, but Frank forgot he was dealing with an experienced fighter. All this was thanks to Calvin Ford brilliance. These were his major analysis of Frank Martin's weakness. Frank's tendency to deviate from the game plan under pressure. While Martin starts strong, following his coach's strategy, he sometimes abandons these tactics when faced with relentless aggression from his opponent. This tendency can leave him vulnerable to powerful counterattacks, as seen in his bout against Gervonta Davis. Another weakness is his susceptibility to powerful body shots. Martin has a strong defensive guard, but when opponents target his midsection, it can significantly slow him down and sap his energy. This was evident in several of his fights where body shots disrupted his rhythm and reduced his mobility in the later rounds. Additionally, Martin's footwork, while generally effective, can become less precise as the fight progresses. Fatigue often leads to slower movements and a tendency to get cornered or trapped against the ropes. This lack of sustained agility can be a significant disadvantage against fighters who excel at cutting off the ring and applying constant pressure. Lastly, Martin sometimes struggles with maintaining a consistent offensive output. While he has a solid jab and combination punching, he occasionally becomes too defensive and hesitant to throw punches, especially when facing an aggressive opponent. This passivity can allow his adversaries to dictate the pace of the fight and score points, putting Martin at a disadvantage on the judges' scorecards. And guess what? Gervonta did mention all this in the build-up to the fight, but we just did not pay attention because we all thought he was trying to get in Frank's head. It was all in the plan, and Davis had just one assignment for the fight. It was an intense pressure, taking Frank Martin's body to another kind of pressure he has never experienced in his life. Mix it up until the face opens up to receive those devastating punches that has knocked out 27 opponents before Frank the Ghost Martin. If you go back to the fight, this was exactly how it happened again. Frank Martin, under the guidance of renowned trainer Derrick James, entered the ring with a meticulously crafted game plan designed to counter Gervonta Davis's aggressive style. James's strategy focused on utilizing Martin's speed and footwork to keep Davis at bay, capitalizing on swift jabs and constant movement to avoid Davis's powerful punches. However, as the fight progressed, Martin gradually deviated from this game plan. The initial rounds saw Martin executing James's strategy effectively, maintaining distance and using his jab to disrupt Davis's rhythm. But the relentless pressure from Davis began to wear on Martin, leading him to abandon the tactics that had been keeping him safe. As Davis closed the distance, Martin found himself engaging in exchanges that played to Davis's strengths. Instead of sticking to the plan of outmaneuvering Davis, Martin began standing his ground and trading punches. This shift allowed Davis to land several heavy shots that started to take their toll on Martin. Davis's persistence and power were too much for Martin to handle without the defensive tactics that had been outlined by James. By the middle rounds, Martin was clearly struggling to keep up with the ferocity of Davis's attacks. His abandonment of the game plan became more apparent as he relied more on instinct rather than strategy. The pivotal moment came when Martin, now visibly fatigued and cornered, tried to fight his way out instead of using his footwork to escape. Davis seized the opportunity, delivering a devastating combination that sent Martin to the canvas. The knockout was a testament to Davis's power, but also highlighted how Martin's departure from Derrick James's game plan ultimately led to his downfall. This fight underscored the importance of sticking to a well-prepared strategy, especially against a formidable opponent like Gervonta Davis. Well, the Gervonta Davis versus Frank Martin fight has gone and come. If you look at it critically, this fight does not prepare Tank against Shakur. It was a tune-up fight in my opinion. The true test will be against Vasily Lomachenko, the true slick Ukrainian fighter who can dance, box forward and backward, bring pressure, and does not tire. If Gervonta beats him up, knock him out, my advice to Shakur Stevenson would be stay away from that killer. I think it is a dangerous fight because Loma would match up Davis in every aspect. With the red face Frank Martin gave Davis in this fight, he might need to work more on defense, but let me know what you think in the comments section.